InsideVision is brought to you by New England College of Optometry and Sector Media Group.
Day one, everybody went on unemployment. So I want to bring them all back. Obviously, as the owner, I have a responsibility to keep the team somehow uplifted enough to understand that there will be a return.
I had to furlough all my staff. One of the most important things that I've done is keep in constant contact with them. We have lives there, they're people. They've been affected by this as much as, we have.
I treat them like family members, and most of them are 10, 20 years or longer. So I have to know how to take care of the staff properly, but also to be practical. I wanted to do the right thing, but not knowing how long this was going to go on, I had to be realistic about how I could sustain my practice.
This is Inside Vision for Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020. Episode 2, Preserving Our Most Valued Resource, the Human Resource, with guests from Rigo REM Eyewear, Alessandro Baronti, and Doug Moore, and from Chicago's Rosin Eyecare, James Rosen, addressing key questions about personnel amidst the pandemic.
The one question I have is, if you have a weak employee, what is the proper time to eliminate them? Do you eliminate them before you get to PPP or after?
The PPP hasn't come in for most of us. We have to start paying rent, and am I going to survive this?
What do we do when we get back if someone gets the virus on the staff? Does that obligate us to close down? Wow, yeah.
And you're back live on Inside Vision, and Floyd Smith said it. Wow. A lot to think about there. Howard, good morning.
Morning, Eric, and good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us. Some powerful messages to kick off the show this week, that's for sure.
Absolutely. These guys are dealing with a lot of questions and a lot of situations, and we're going to hopefully get some answers today from some people who know. What do you hear in those voices when you hear your colleagues, those ECPs, talking in that way?
You know what? I hear passion, I hear concern, but I hear a real caring for their people, and I think that's a lot of what this is about today. Last week we covered marketing and the importance of marketing, and I think it was a critical piece, but to me, nothing more important than your people. It really is about the people, and today it's the struggles we're having. We've got these people who have worked for us for years and years. They're loyal to us for years and years, and the heartbreak, and I could see it in Dr. Cassell's eyes when he talked about it, just the heartbreak they're feeling on having to either furlough or lay people off. I mean, it's really tragic, but maybe perhaps a bit of glimmer of a silver lining today for those of you who happen to see Jobson's data, and they've done a wonderful job of continuing to put out some really good data, and they basically would suggest we've kind of hit the bottom. So perhaps that's a silver lining, perhaps that's an opportunity.
I guess that's good news.
Yeah, I think it is good news. It's now on the upswing, and I hope that's what we can focus on today is kind of the comeback. We have some amazing guests. I'm really excited. Even after seeing last week's show, these guys still agreed to come on. That's pretty special.
Yeah, we're happy to have them. Hearing from all these ECPs, I mean, those people in our intro there, those ECPs have very different practices, varying staff levels, different specialties. But right now we're all facing the same kind of challenges. As a group, we're all in the same boat. And we've got some guests here to talk about those facts. Joining us now from Rigo REM, we've got Alessandro Baronti and we've got Doug Moore. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thrilled to have you guys here. I have to say, as I was looking around and we knew we wanted to do a show on the human resource being such a critical issue, and particularly now as we try to make our way back, you guys are doing some really unique and creative things. And I thought it would be wonderful to have you to come on, talk a little bit to our listeners about what Rigo REM is doing. But let me just first say, Alessandro, I've followed your career in this industry. You've been amazing in the contributions that you've made. Thank you for everything you've done. But probably the biggest challenge you've ever had in your career, I assume, is trying to deal with these situations, not only for your internal group, but the customers that you serve. It's a challenge, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's unprecedented. Whoever thought, and there is a lot of learning, and I actually feel fortunate to be in the United States because I have to tell you, having a global perspective, we are we're lucky to be in a country that is offering support for people in many ways, and other countries are not as fortunate as we are, and so we should really appreciate that. And I know we're going to talk about that, about the many different programs. I love what you said about people first, and I'm a firm believer in that. So I'm honored to be on this episode, to be able to discuss importance of people and how we can take care of them.
And I do also want to recognize your home country and the challenges they've had. I know it's hit home for you and your own family, so we wish you all the best as well. I know you wish the best to all of our listeners and their families. We hope everyone is well. Doug, thrilled to have you. You bring the HR expertise to the table. I'm just going to hit you with a quick question right out of the gate, if you don't mind. Why is HR important at this point in time? I mean, HR is always important, but perhaps it's most important at times of crisis. What is it about HR that's important, and what sort of advice might you have for our listeners, bringing your expertise to the table as they struggle through these really difficult decisions?
I think most important is engagement. I think we heard, some of our small eyewear companies say, engaging with the employees is really important. We want to bring them back. We don't want to lose them. It could be a recruiting crisis. There's lots of laws changing, right, with healthcare. We have to come up with protocols, safe protocols. Worker well-being is kind of number one right now. Customer well-being. How are you going to deal with that? You're going to have to write those policies, do the training.
Right. And so do you guys have those policies? Is that something that you share outside of Del Rigo REM? Because, in our small businesses, in many cases, we're the HR lead, right, and we're the owner, et cetera, at least in the small practices. Is those readily accessible? Are there templates? Are there ways that people can get some sense who aren't HR experts like yourself?
That's a great question. I look towards OSHA for those policies. Best practices that you see from other companies. We are still developing those. Okay. How we're going to look when we start coming back. That is our planning right now.
And Doug, where are you putting in the scheme of things and levels of priority the safety of the staffs that are working for these optometrists and retailers? There's many issues around cleaning, keeping the employees safe so as not to, of course, spread. And then the questions around what if that happens? What kind of advice or insight can you offer on that?
We're trying. Part of our plan that we're developing is to do split shifts, right? So not everybody is in the office. The cleaning practice, right? We have to. I think our next phase is to start training so we can all be consistent with the same practices.
That is critical, isn't it?
Yes, and for Alessandro, what are you hearing, Alessandro, from your accounts and from your colleagues in the industry about the coming back process and the priorities here for HR?
Well, there is a lot of uncertainty, and so I hear messages of concern because it is the unknown. One of the things that I just want to make clear is for everybody to kind of take a moment to settle down, and this is a great moment to really reflect and think and pre-plan. I also want to go back to what it was discussed a few minutes ago. We do have resources available to help independent eye care professional. We establish a HR reach out program. Doug is in charge of that. Is answering every email that we're receiving, and we're going to share this link in this episode. And there is pre-made a template for everybody to follow. There are go-to website that Doug is going to direct you to, so you're not alone in this process. And HR is a complex ground, but we are here to do the best that we can as a company to help you, because we are a small business like you. So we understand what you're going through. We understand that in most cases, independent eye care professional don't have an HR person assigned to manage all of these processes, and So we really want to try to do the best that we can to help you with resources that are actually available out there for all of you. And when it comes down to the restart of the business, which seems like that is going to happen sooner than what we actually thought, and especially in some states, like for example, we have Texas already on the restarting ground. We have Georgia already on the restarting ground. I think we need to take it. I think we need to learn from each other, and I think it's listening to what other practices are already going to do to prepare, or the first experience about how patients are coming back in the practice and what kind of expectation they have. I think we're going to learn by doing all together. So the expectation of knowing on how to do everything today, I don't think is realistic.
Yeah, Doug, Alessandro mentioned something about a program you have. Perhaps you could share a little bit of details around that. It's pretty exciting and I think very helpful to our listeners, as we don't bring a lot of that expertise, as has been mentioned a couple of times. Would you mind sharing some of that with us?
Sure. They're learning tools, tools for information. If you email me, I can send you a list of resources. Some are free, some are very low cost. Links to the Department of Labor, links to all the different states' unemployment sites for information. I have over 40 plus HR tools for US and Canada. There is a free hotline actually for Canada that you could call. So various resources I have used, memberships I belong to, and just different ways to help people during this time.
Well, I think we have some graphics. Are we seeing those? If you want to speak to those supplied graphics that you have for us, Doug, those are up for the audience now.
Sure, I think I might have a little something different, but the U.S. Department of Labor links, official websites to get coronavirus information on unemployment by state, ultimate HR memberships. SHRM is where I've gotten a lot of my training from, a couple of my accreditations. The learning came through SHRM. I think that's probably my best resource. There's one called HR Bartender on how to plan for an organizational emergency. And then different tools and resources for you to learn HR. Especially if you delegate HR, the big part is that includes training.
And Doug, I just want to follow up a little bit on the notion from some of the questions that we're getting from ECPs across the country regarding the timing of staffing decisions. And many of them are seeing that they're at a critical inflection point in deciding what the staffing will be like coming back. They have 20 employees. They might need 25 coming back if we're going to have, a big pent-up demand for services. But at the same time, those patients may be spread out across longer hours. Yeah. Some ECPs are also looking at the fact of maybe eliminating some staff that aren't necessary or were underperforming. We've had a lot of questions about the legality and the best practices for handling staffing changes at this point. What can you offer there?
Well, I'm hoping you have, everyone has an employee handbook. I think that's the first place to go to look at if you have a policy on layoffs and on returning back to work. If you don't have that policy, if you laid off everyone, the safest route is seniority, and of course, operational coherence, right, in order to run your operation. Those would be the least risk for businesses on bringing people back. If you're going to deviate from that, I would definitely get some legal counsel just to protect yourself, to make sure no one can accuse you of being discriminatory or violating anyone's contracts. There's at-will states. There's some states that are contract employment. So we might have to look at those agreements. That would be my.
In short, talk to a lawyer before you make any hard and firm decisions, and before you start notifying staff members about changes. Is that about the best advice?
I would say yes, unless you have a very solidified process already in place.
Copy that.
Good advice. Yeah, absolutely. Alessandro, just one thing I wanted to hear a little bit from you about. I know because this is really in your wheelhouse. Trust and loyalty. You know, you build a wonderful team around you, and then you find yourself in a situation, and it's a very difficult one, where you're having to either furlough people or lay people off, and we're all facing it, whether you're in a small optometric practice or a large organization like yours. And I know there's no magic bullet here or silver bullet. However, how do you maintain that trust and loyalty when you were going to want to bring a lot of these people back through such a difficult time? And you just, to me, are such a great leader. How do you manage through that? Or any words of wisdom you can provide to our listeners on how you maintain some of that trust and loyalty through such a difficult time like this?
Thank you, Howard. That's a great question. It's communication, transparency, and speak from the heart. People can tell when you speak from the heart, and truly do the best that you can to really be able to stand behind the people that stood behind next to you in this time. I'm hearing great story, even of employee that they've been laid off, that they voluntarily try to help, even though the laws says that you cannot do that. Virtually, if you're an employee, you cannot even answer in an email, but there is a lot of desire to be able to voluntarily help. So if you speak from the heart, and people know that indeed as a leader you're trying to do the best that you can to really help them, and looking at the needs obviously of your company, but also trying to understand the situation where they're in. I'll give you an example about our situation. We made a specific decision to wait and see, and for almost 4 weeks we asked to our employee to really start to use their vacation time, their PTO. And that was another beautiful thing that I saw, that on a volunteer base, that people volunteer to work on their vacation time. And for me, it was not expected, but it was a sign that they're really that they really want to be part of our business, and that allow us to really be able to avoid making impulsive decisions, to make mistake, and we took a little bit of a risk, but then allow us to understand what is the next move. We apply for an SBA loan, and we thought about applying for an SBA loan, and at the end it was not really something that it was going to work for us based on many different factors. And then last week we furloughed our company, so we went into a furlough program on a true work sharing implementation program. And in the midst of that, we realized that some people really got hurt bad with that program, because if you're over a certain salary, you cannot really leverage on all of the government support available. So we actually yesterday, in less than 3 hours, we made some changes to the work sharing plan, and we took a segmentation of employees from 2 days a week to 3 days a week, because we realized that the financial impact was going to be on 2 days a week. It was going to be a 60% reduction of their income, and moving them from 2 days a week to 2 days a week, it was going to be a 40% financial impact on their income. Now, it's still a lot, but now when you are on a 40%, you can still afford to pay the bills and to pay the rent and to go on. 60% was really putting people down on their knees. And so we made an effort. We made another sacrifice, and we made a change eventually. I was working with Doug. We found out at 9:30 through that the government was not going to stand behind a specific situation because of a simple math, and we as a company made the decision to do that. So, and we communicated that in a proper way, and these kind of moves go a long way, because people understand that this is hard on the owner of the business, and they understand that very much, and because we're in this together, right? But if we are in this together, we also need to open our wallet in some cases and make those tough decisions, and sometimes it has to be the saving account. The other important thing is for everybody to understand that we are in this together. So we're all impacted. from myself as the CEO of the company, everybody is impacted. And it's not that somebody is excluded from. And now when people know that we're in this together, that everybody is making a sacrifice, and now that goes a long way, and now you really touch their hearts.
Yeah, thank you, Alessandro. I can tell why people enjoy working with you and for you. And I do want to add one thing that you haven't said, but I'm going to say it for you because I've heard you say it before. You guys are ready for the comeback. You've got what you need. You've got the materials. You've got the inventory. When people need you, you're going to be ready. I've heard you say that before, and I know you're not. This isn't supposed to be a commercial for you, but I think that's good for people to hear, to know that when they're ready for you, you're ready for them. And we appreciate that. I know on behalf of all of my colleagues that we appreciate that. And listening to you is inspiring. It's important. These are tough decisions that everyone has to make, but we have to try our best to make the right decision, because we are going to come out the other side. It's going to happen, and we want to maintain that trust and loyalty that we've always had. So thank you guys so much for some great insights. We really appreciate it. Doug, thank you for some of those connectivities that you brought. I hope people will reach out to you and utilize some of those resources that you've pointed out. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Good luck to you, and good luck to your business. And personally, particularly for you, Alessandro, we wish you and your family the best, and looking forward to continuing to communicate with you as we make our way through this.
Howard, allow me a quick comment in closing. The benefit of a furlough plan that allows you to bring back inactive status progressively, and you had 39 weeks to do that. So it's a great flexibility. So the moment that you restart your business, if the business is up to 100% the first week, you can bring all of your staff back at once. If not, you can progressively bring your staff back as needed in 39 weeks. And so you should definitely, as a business owner, take advantage of this flexibility. Thank you, Howard, and thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Doug and Alessandro, very much. Great information and great things to think about. We appreciate you articulating that for us. Have a safe and profitable journey through this process.
Yeah, and by the way, thanks for waking up early for us, too. We appreciate
on the West Coast, we should add. Both of them coming out of California. Guys, thanks so much.
Not bad for 6:30 in the morning for those guys, Eric, huh?
Yeah, no, really, they're doing double duty. Thanks again, guys. Howard, we're learning a lot there, and hopefully this is good information for our friends and colleagues out there.
I hope so.
It's such an incredible effort that ODs and their staffs have to make to figure out this transition, and the HR element with the cleanliness, with the financing, the government money, and then all of this with an uncertain timing. Just not knowing when is really challenging. So hopefully we
challenging for all of us. I agree, and that's why we want to bring the best minds in the industry and outside the industry here to help you out with those things. We talked about the CARES Act last week, and we know about $2 trillion there. We know as of yesterday, at least through the Senate, there's another $480 billion, and no better person to help us start and think about some of those things than our next guest. So if you don't mind, I'm going to introduce Jamie Rosen, my good friend. Jamie, welcome to InsideVision. We're thrilled to have you here. I know you didn't have to wake up. You don't have to wake up quite as early as those guys, but we're happy to have you on. For those of you who don't know Jamie, and I've had the pleasure of sitting on a panel with Jamie, he's just an outstanding contributor to this profession in a practice that's a family practice near and dear to my heart, because I was in a family practice as well. And I think 80 years old, Jamie, is that right?
90.
About 80 or more, 90 years old. Wow, incredible. Yeah. 51 locations. And I know that not everybody listening has 51 locations, but I know the kind of guy you are, and you look at those locations on a one-by-one individual basis. So we're thrilled to have you here. You heard some of the discussion. We'd love to get some of your insights. How are you prioritizing things right now in this difficult time? What are the things that you're paying attention to, particularly as it relates to the human resource side? You've got a big team, maybe not quite as big as Rigo REM, but you got a big team there of ophthalmology, optometry, opticianry, your staff. I mean, it's got to be difficult decisions every day for you. How is the human side? How is the human resource side entering into your decision making?
Well, it's a key factor. Obviously, we're in, as Alessandro said, this is unprecedented. There's no playbook for pandemics that at least our organization has. So we are really bringing, so I'd say, let me tell you our situation, and then we'll go a little deeper. But
please,
so in our situation, we had to furlough the vast majority of our staff. We have 7 locations that are open. seeing patients with our ophthalmologists and optometrists who are like heroes. They're, showing up and seeing patients. We're doing things from telemedicine to live visits if you're not at risk and have no COVID flu-like symptoms. And that decision to furlough is a really tough one. We're able to continue to maintain their health benefits, which is really important in this period of time, which was the benefit of furloughing. And we're looking forward to, a reopen strategy. We're just starting to talk now about how we reopen, what the criteria is. And I'd say the other thing that's important is, this is a time to recognize that your people, which are really incredibly valuable to your business and your life and their families, the first and foremost, we want to operate safely for both patients and our staff. And I think it's important for organizations that have staff that are no longer working to continue to communicate with them at least weekly. You need an update on honestly what you're seeing, reassuring them that there is going to be a reopen strategy, because I think all of us need some hope. The shelter in place, we've been in it now for 4 weeks. I think communication, the human touch, even if it's not physical, but it's sheltered, is really important during this period of time. So we're communicating with our staff that's on staff every morning. We have a 30-minute huddle with the people that are on staff, seeing what they're seeing, getting a sense of how it's going. We're communicating with our furloughed employees every week to give them an update on what we're seeing, reassuring them that we want first and foremost is safety for them and their families and our patients. We're communicating with our patients to let them know what we can do. So we can do telemedicine consults. We can do live visits for those people that are not at risk and are asymptomatic from a COVID perspective. We can, duplicate their existing glasses if they're lost or broken and they're really nervous, they don't want to come in for an exam. We can extend their contact lens prescription. They can order contact lenses. So we're trying to let them know that we're here all in this together and that we're here for them. And, it's a phone call away just to get some advice from one of our doctors on, is this really something I need to worry about? Do I need to come in, or what are my options if I'm at risk? And that's kind of that's our situation. And I think that's a lot of people that are listening that are practitioners' situation.
I love it, by the way, Jamie. You're a can-do guy. I can do this. I can do that.
Yeah.
That's what we need right now, man. It's a lot
absolutely.
of that can do.
And Jamie, I'm curious as to what you're hearing from your employees when you say, even the furloughed employees that you're keeping in touch with on a weekly basis, and all of your staff, when you're hearing from them and answering their questions. What are their questions or top couple questions, and what are your answers? Because I think our audience is probably getting a lot of the same inbound, and knowing how you handle it might be helpful.
Well, so part of the early going, so it's sort of it's really fluid in this period of time. So that it's not like concrete and in stone, because we're all sort of figuring this out as we go.
Right.
But we're including those people in how we move forward. So so from the people that are on staff, we're getting their insights into what's happening and what's working. Before that, we had to publish protocols on, how we're handling testing equipment cleaning, how we're handling social spacing in the waiting rooms and throughout the locations, how we're sanitizing the office every hour, how we're sanitizing eyeglass frames that are tried on, et cetera, so that our staff, and what PPE they have to be required to wear and what patients have to wear, so that they feel safe. Because right. I think before you're in the mix, I think it feels like it's a really unsafe. And for some of the staff that's not working right now, I think it feels really scary. Once you're actually in the setting and you're doing the things you need to do to sanitize, to keep yourself safe, to keep the patient safe,
right,
it's not as scary. And I think that's another key for everybody listening that's, not practicing is, your staff is going to be fearful. But if you reassure them and you're doing the things to keep everybody safe, it becomes a whole different ballgame. Does that make sense? So I'd say early on is a lot of those questions, like how are we going to do the sanitizing, et cetera.
Right.
Now I think I think everybody is, from the people that we've talked to, I think they appreciate the furloughed employees. They appreciate the communication. They're ready to, when it's safe, they're ready to come back to work. And so I think that's what I'm getting a sense of is that many of the people I've spoken to are getting closer to being ready to work, but still a little bit scared. So does that sort of answer your question?
Yes, it does. There are going to be a lot of questions, even about where to get PPE. I don't know if you're getting that one, or how you've addressed that situation yourself with so many locations and so much to distribute. Where does one go to start getting geared up?
So there are multiple resources out there. I'd say and there are industry partners that are also participating in helping you to get PPE. So I think as you reach out to industry partners, the AOA is a good resource. The Vision Council is a really good resource to find PPE. What I will tell you is the pricing on PPE is like through the roof. So it really is unfortunate that a lot of the resources that are out there are,
what would you expect it to
money.
cost to outfit a small staff, let's say a single doctor practice or a 2-doctor practice with a staff of 10 to 20 people? Do you have a sense of those costs yet?
Yeah, we're not really. I can tell you that some of the pricing range for an N95 mask is like in the mid $3 to $4 range per mask. Delivery times have now, shrunk to like 10 to 12 to 14 days. It was a heck of a lot longer before then.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think everybody has to go through and understand and really ask themselves and actually go through functionally, does this work? Do I need to wear goggles or not? And who needs to wear goggles? Do I need everybody to be in N95 masks, or can someone be in accordion ear loop masks?
Right.
Do we have to get plexiglass at the front desk, to help reduce some of the PPE, if that's even possible? All these things we're kind of going through now, and resources are surfacing. A lot of different frame companies are offering resources in some of these areas as well.
Yeah,
so they're available, they're just costly.
Sorry, Jamie. I was going to say, we heard about some great resources Del Rigo REM is offering. I'll just put a little plug for my team. The New England College of Optometry is working closely with MIT and Mass Eye and Ear, not so much for the standard PPE that we've been talking about, but to create some very specific PPE for the eye care field. Keep in mind, we're one of the unique professions. We're nose to nose with people in many cases. Not every profession is like that, and it will require some very unique technologies, and that's being worked on. So I hope our listeners, and thank you for introducing that, because I hope our listeners will look at all of the activity and opportunity that's out there for them to procure some of these materials. You're right, unfortunately there is some pricing issues going on, but I hope that will get under control a little bit better, and as we start to see the supply and demand side balance out a little bit better. I know
we are also, just a comment, we are now starting to see some of our municipalities actually distributing PPE. So nice. You can even check with your local municipality to see if they have a program.
Great point. I know we're starting to wind down. I had 2 quick questions. Maybe we can answer them quickly, so I didn't want to miss getting an opportunity to ask you these. So 2 quick ones. Most common made mistakes when it comes to HR, in your opinion? You've got a lot of experience. You've got a lot of people. What are kind of the things that are just good watch outs for our listeners, as you have probably significant more experience than many of us do? Anything comes to your mind in terms of those most common
I think honesty is really important. I think if you look at the future, we're going to reopen, right? And then what we're going to probably have is some hotspots that develop. And so I think part of your HR plan is not just how you reopen, but how you, in an organized way, if you are a shelter in place because of a hotspot coming up, that you have actually the wind down strategy, in terms of how do I get jobs to patients that are here for pickup, and how do I, communicate with them frequently? How do I communicate with my staff? But I think that we have to prepare for that. I think that's going to be our future until there's a vaccine, essentially, or reliable therapeutics. And then I just think, I would say the mistake is going dark. Do not go, as I call it, boneless. Don't go boneless on your staff and your patients. You have to be in their place, space, wherever they are, that you have to be there for them. I think I would say the number one mistake is going dark.
Very good. Good words of wisdom. Last one for you. Any recommended readings or references that you might suggest? I know our friends from Del Rigo REM were able to provide some of that. Anything from your side that you might recommend our listeners look at that could be helpful?
Yeah, so I sent you a really good article from the Harvard Business Review about leadership, because leadership's so important in terms
Maybe it's possible just to put that up real quickly. I don't know if we can do that. Maybe Ziggy can work his magic. I'm not sure. But if not, can you tell us just a little about that article?
Yeah, I think we'll have to distribute that by email request.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it speaks to how leadership has such an important role in creating a positive climate, and how positive climate has a role in engaging staff. And more engaged your staff is, the further they'll go out of their way to help somebody. So anyways, I think that's one. The other one that I think is great, two others, Paco Underhill. If you reread Why We Buy and now put it in the context of social spacing, it's really an interesting read and gives you a lot of things to think about. And the last one is Robert Cialdini. The book is called Influence, and he talks about the 7 triggers as human beings we have, and how you can not manipulate, but how you can be aware of those 7 triggers in your marketing communication with your staff.
Jamie, you are the man. I knew you wouldn't let us down, buddy. Thank you. Listen, we wish you the best of health for you, your team, your family. And I love it that you guys have just built that family business to just an amazing level and caring for so many people in the Chicago area. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for joining us. Look forward to talking to you again soon, catching up on how things are progressing.
Yeah, just one comment. I think what you guys are doing to create communication in this period of time is so vitally important. You guys are doing a great job, and I'm really honored to be with you guys. Thanks for including me.
Very nice of you to say, my friend. Thank you very much.
Jamie,
Eric,
thank you very much. Great having you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much, Eric.
Eric, one thing to me that just comes through so clearly from these really smart people is this whole idea of honesty and communication.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it all comes down to. Look, no one has the playbook here, right? No one knows exactly how to do it. I wish we did. I wish we all had a playbook we could read that says this is how you deal with it. This is unprecedented. I think Alessandro said it. This is unprecedented times for us. But you know what? It comes down to the basic stuff in so many cases. Being honest with your people. I'm just listening to Alessandro. I'm ready to go work for him, aren't you? I mean,
exactly.
It's like, he is honest. He is sincere. He is communicating with his people. And it may not always be the perfect message for people, but he is communicating. And, we had some great questions about, what do you do when people get the virus from some of our people? What do you do when you have these people that maybe aren't your best employees, and ultimately you want to try to see what to do with them? In the end, I think we got the good advice, even though we didn't have those specific questions.
Well, what's amazing is that it really comes down to communication on all fronts. And, I think back to last week when we were talking with Carl Bracey, the retired Essilor marketing executive, and he put it into perspective this way, saying, right now, everything that you do is marketing. I mean, obviously it's coming from a marketer, but everything's marketing, and communications is marketing. So whereas we've tried to separate some topics for these programs, they all lead back to certain central points. And the communication with the staff at this point, and the furloughed staff, the ones you want to come back, the ones you have to deal with in other ways, that's all communications and marketing internally to get everybody on board with this massive task of figuring out how to come back.
Absolutely. But it's clear why these guys are so successful, isn't it?
Yes.
They get it. They understand it. And I think we can all learn from them. And I hope our listeners got some really good insights from them. And certainly thanks again to them for joining us. And I'm going to kick it back to you to close things out, buddy.
Yeah, we're going to close it out with some more information from another great eye doctor out in California, and his name is Steve Klein. He's with Total Vision. We've got a new segment for the end of the show that we're gonna finish with on a weekly basis, and we're gonna call it something to think about. And here we're talking about a metric for your staffing. Steve Klein has it. Something to think about.
Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Eric. Something really important to think about is taking your staff and making your staff costs much leaner, being a leaner and meaner company. Our staffs can be upwards of 30, 40, even 50% of our revenue. I've looked at hundreds of practices, and I found the most profitable practices are those that are around 30 or sometimes even less than 30. And those are the practices that I like to bring on to Total Vision. Ways you can do that are cross-training. You can market to your patients while they're inside. So when the moment inside the office, while the moment of truth comes, they are ready to make purchases rather than having this expensive staff folks, your staff talking to the patient. I've seen it take 5 minutes, and painfully, I've seen that interaction take 45 minutes, and then the patient decides not to sell. So cross-train, automate, market to your patients while they're in the chair, and be lean when we come out of this crisis.
Thanks for watching InsideVision. To receive updates about our programming, click subscribe.